From UC Berkeley Art Museum and Pacific Film Archive, this is Black Life, a multidisciplinary public program that explores the vitality and range of cultural production in the African diaspora. This is Black Life. Through a series of exciting multimedia activations, often connecting traditional practice with contemporary issues in the Bay Area and beyond. I'm Ryanaustin, one of the co-curators, and thank you for joining us for a special digital program with Dax Pierson. We'll chat about his creative process and listen to tracks from his latest LP, Nerve Bumps, a Queer Divine Dissatisfaction. This conversation took place February 24th, 2021 on occupied Ohlone territory at my home in West Oakland and at Dax Pearson studio via Zoom.
We're here to talk about your album that's being released, Nerve Bumps. I love that name, a divine, queer divine dissatisfaction. Like, it's so good. And actually, as a quote, I heard that you had gotten this from Martha Graham, and in the
That's
quote,
correct.
Yeah, and it says no artist is pleased. She once said, there was only a queer divine dissatisfaction, a blessed unrest that keeps us marching and makes us more alive than the others. Please tell me about that. It's such a beautiful
man. Okay, I was introduced to the quote by my partner, who's a visual artist, Chuck Nanny.
And also he did the album artwork, I heard.
Yes, that's some earlier work of his.
Mm-hmm.
A favorite piece of mine that he has that just automatically felt like an album cover.
Mm-hmm.
The first time I saw it 7 years ago. But I got the quote from him as we were talking about our own creative issues. Mm-hmm. And Chuck was using it for one of his gallery shows.
Yeah.
It was called a Queer Divine Dissatisfaction. And, it just became a mantra for me because when I was working on the album, there's a lot of times, especially as you age as a creative, everything doesn't just come as an inspiration. You kind of have to work a little bit harder.
Right.
And so, after many discussions that we've had over the years, that just became a mantra for me working on this album, because there were a lot of times where I didn't feel so confident about the music, and I didn't know where to take it, and I just had to work through it with that mantra. And just, sometimes one isn't always inspired, but it's important for someone to still do some creative work, and some of it could be technical things. Some of it could just be listening to music,
right,
or reading, but it's still work.
Mm-hmm.
And it still propels you forward as an artist.
Yeah.
And so, for a long while, some of the songs I wasn't very sure about, but I decided I really needed to just get the work done, because it had already been 15 years of not releasing any solo work since my injury. So, I just felt like I really needed to get something out,
mm-hmm,
and maybe not worry about certain tracks not being my favorite tracks or not, because that's always going to be the way. And
you don't know. I always feel like with artists and musicians, you don't know who it can touch. You don't know, until, like you said, until there's until you externalize it, right?
Right.
Yeah. And I feel like...
Right. So now I have a different relationship with the album now that people are hearing it and responding.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it's redeeming what I was doing, or making me feel like, I wasn't sure if I did good, and these people are telling me I did good. That part doesn't matter as much, but the reaction to it is something that, I feel better about the record now.
Like I mean, I feel like you make the music in order to get that reaction, like whether it can be, I mean, good or bad. Like I feel like even like you want it's to provoke.
That's true.
So yeah,
I mean, I want people to hear it.
Right? Yeah, exactly. You want them to feel something. I just love the poetry of that, like, and I love, like, for me, like, I like this idea of just like queer divinity and how it's normally built through dissatisfaction of a kind of upheaval, resistance against something, right? To just be like, you know what, I don't like this, and I'm going to stunt, or I'm going to yell, or I'm going to make it difficult. And there is a divinity, there is a kind of like a power in that. So
that's true. Yeah, and I felt that a lot when coming up with some of the song titles, like "I Slay the Pain," for example, is an example of that, where I just felt power, like I had power, to overcome these things that I have to go through on a daily basis, and I'm just gonna slay the pain and move on and make music and do what I need to do.
What I love about that track, it's like it's to me it's like club ready. It has that vogue. It has a little like there's like a trap drum kind of bass thing going on. No, I love that one of my favorite things about listening through the album was like you, of course, like you play through genres so well, and like there's like for me, like there was a lot of like kind of synth and piano works that were happening, and sometimes it would feel housey, but then also it felt very like post-punk. Like there were like I was totally hearing like post-punk like kind of vibes and like in a lot of tracks, and so it was like it's just like interesting to see you pull through all of this, and then also like of course like techno and ambient sounds, but yeah, let's get into a couple I want to get into a couple things. So like
okay.
For the Angels, of course, you talked about that, like again, like this idea of divinity, like what was for you, what was the kind of like starting point for you?
The starting point for me was wanting to dedicate or make a tribute to the ghost ship victims. Yeah, they're the Angels. So that track is specifically for the victims of the ghost ship fire, and it was just my way of making a tribute to them.
Yeah.
And the track came about the day before it was recorded for Live in Oakland, because I was trying to put together a live set. And I was working on the iPad and, came up with the bass line and came up with all those parts. And so I was able to improv a performance of the song for the Live in Oakland thing. And later I decided I wanted to expand it, add more parts, because I wanted to take it away from being as straight techno as it was, and I wanted to arrange it some more.
Yeah.
And already with a 303 bass line that changes, that's already something different. But I just wanted to do what I do and make an arrangement and add other voices besides the standard techno voices, but add a little to that as well to take it a little further.
Yeah, and particularly with like the vocal stuff, like I know in the track Snap, like I know that you like your vocals are in there. It's like a really short actually track too. Like where did that come from? These like fragmented kind of loops. Like what was it like? What where were you at with that? Like
that is the reprise to A Snap of the Neck on Live in Oakland.
Yep,
So I was just referencing it because, well, I was just referencing it as a short track to kind of make a relationship between the two releases more continual, more serial.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I felt like the statement of what is a snap of a neck, where I say that you can lose your physical abilities at the snap of a neck.
Yeah.
And so I was just reiterating that as a short track to continue on from Live in Oakland.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, like I always like I like when artists actually are willing to just do these kind of short exercises, I guess you could say, like in just atmosphere and like kind of I'm really I love a minute track sometimes, but you do kind of go long, because I know you have like this almost 11
I can do that
12-minute track. It's called Nothing Fucks You Harder Than Time, right?
That's right.
So
that's right.
And the reality of that, the reality of that is like, I was like, all right, like,
yeah,
I'm gonna have to sit.
And that is a live improv. That is something from when I was doing performances in 2017. Adhesion, I Slay the Pain, and Nothing Fucks You Harder Than Time. That used to be my set. Like when I performed at the San Francisco Electronic Music Festival, that was my set. So that's how I started the album, was to finish those tracks, or to use them for the album. And I just improved on Adhesion and I Slay the Pain. I did a little bit more work, more mixing.
Yeah, and it's interesting you've brought up improvisation, and I'm very interested to kind of hear like how does that function for you, particularly like with electronic music, like how you produce music, how you do live performance, like what's your kind of philosophy around that? Because I know there's jazz influence within your, right? Like,
one more time.
Oh, I was just saying, like, I know there is like a jazz influence, like you're working in those traditions, of course, but I'm curious to see like what's your take on that.
Yeah, well, it comes from a long tradition of being in groups that liked to experiment and improvise, but not necessarily in the genre of jazz. But my previous band, Subtle, would just freestyle, is what we called it, because it's the same thing, freestyle, improv, whatever. We would do that. We would record while we're doing that, and then we would take those tracks, chop them up, loop them, and make an arrangement into them. And that is one of the ways that I still work when I can. And as far as the way that Nothing Fucks You Harder Than Time developed, there were parts that I had chosen and had created, but the timing of those and when they came in and how they came in were dependent on how I felt that day.
Right. Yeah.
And so the version that's on the recording is one of my practice run-throughs from 2017. Yeah. And it was really important for me to get something more improvised on the record, because it's part of my process, and it's something that I enjoy doing, but it's become more challenging post-injury, because the thought from brain to hand is a lot quicker than trying to write it down or write in notes onto a piano roll or something. So I don't improv the same way, and I have to set up things to trigger and then make the improv when to trigger and how to arrange those and how to affect them.
Right.
I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it does. No, and it kind of leads me to thinking a little bit more about like your creative process. I know you had mentioned earlier that like you have all of these editions of like iPads, of like previous iPads, like, and how you said like you use them as different MIDIs. Is that the correct term I'm using, or like you
well,
process them differently?
There have been times where I've used two iPads to control my laptop, to control a program called Ableton Live on my laptop.
Very complicated program, might I add. I have a friend.
I am crazy about that program.
Yo, okay.
Yeah, it's my religion.
Yeah.
You know, when you get into it, it's just so deep. And the update just came out yesterday. The Ableton Live 11 just came out, which will make my job even easier. There are a lot of features in that program that have made my creativity, my workflow easier, because I'm able to use different tools to create chords, and they've just made some of the workflow easier as compared to some of the other music programs like Pro Tools, for instance.
Huh. Well, I also want to talk a little bit about your, I guess I want to go back to the other track, Keflex, Keflex, yes. And
it's almost like Catholics.
Yeah. And you said it's like it's an antibiotic, actually, and
it's an antibiotic for bladder infections.
Yeah,
which is something that paraplegics and quadriplegics get all the time. So it's just something that is, you know, it's something one does when they're an instrumental musician, is they come up with titles like that because
that's what it is.
They're instrumental.
It's instrumental,
and so it that felt like that track, you know. And maybe I was on the antibiotic when I started the song,
right? And you just like, it felt like this thing, and I mean, it's like,
and that was the working title.
It's like glitchy and like, no, I really, no, definitely.
And the Prince drums, don't forget that.
Oh, the is it Lynn drums? Yeah, those are, I love those. So good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a little nod to Tones on Tail with a little bass line at the end. It's kind of dubby, but Tones on Tail are a goth dub band.
It made me,
God, I love that
it
band.
made me think of, oh gosh, I was gonna say, I think, no, actually, no, the other track was like 4-2-24. Is that, I'm pronouncing that correct?
Yeah. And that is actually, you know, I want to tell you about that track.
Yeah, please.
If I may. 4-2-24 or 4-2-24 is actually, today's the anniversary of what that track means. My injury was on February 24th, 2005. So today's my anniversary. And that song is to memorialize or make a tribute to that period and that event.
Yeah. And I feel it. Like I feel the melancholy of that track and the etherealness of it. And it's funny, like it made me think of it made me think of like Witch House a little bit, like parts of it. Like it felt like, I don't know if you use vocals in that, or like I feel like
No.
a kind of haunting vocal at a certain point in the song. Like there's just a ghost in the background of all of it. So
yeah, I'm using a lot of samples that were sampled through a micro cassette recorder, but they are actual like keyboard samples. So you can play chords, but it sounds like you're playing it and it's been recorded with the micro cassette. So that's where all that wobbliness comes from.
right. Yeah.
You know, those are lo-fi tricks in a hi-fi world.
Yeah, I like that. I love that mix. Yeah, the great mix.
I do too. I consider the fidelity of my work mid-fi.
Mm-hmm. Mid-fi. Okay. That's
because
cool.
it's higher than lo-fi, but it's not a Radiohead record.
No, yeah.
You know. So it is actually, you know what? It's mixed like an indie rock record.
You know, and
that's where you're getting some of that post-punk from.
Like Sonic.
That's
like
that's where that's coming from. Because that's all I listened to in the 90s was post-punk and post-rock. And so that is a lot of my influence. And I really didn't get into techno until the 2000s.
Oh, you came out.
So,
yeah, okay.
But I was into earlier electronic music like Kraftwerk and Harmonia or Eno or something like that. But I was also into This Heat, Drive Like Jehu, and Hot Snakes. So, you know, I'm kind of both of that. And I like the intensity of post-punk and indie rock and all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. But I'm an electronic musician. And so I try to convey some of that. And you are actually the second person to notice that.
Yeah, no, it's like it comes across. And like I'm curious to know, like what are like other artists, or actually no, the real question is like, what is the album that got you into music actually?
Oh,
like
that's hard.
Yeah. Or album.
I inherited records from both. I mean, they gave them to me when they just didn't want to deal with records anymore. My dad and my stepdad, they were both music lovers. And so I grew up around lots of Stevie Wonder. There's this weird album by Cat Stevens called Is It So? And it's got an electronic track on it called Was a Dog a Donut?
Was a Dog a Donut?
And it's been sampled in hip hop already. But it's this weird outlier track by Cat Stevens with Chick Corea on keyboards. And that was probably made a huge impact on me because I had never heard electronic music until then. But I mean, you know what? I was all of 8 years old at that time. So I was a little precocious as far as music goes and how early I got into it. But I would say that song had an impact. But also Prince has had a huge impact on me. I bought Controversy at age 12 when it came out in 82. And Stevie Wonder, you know, and then Weird Devo. Because, you know, if you listen to a Prince record and a Devo record from the same year,
yeah,
they're using the same presets. They're on the same label. So they're listening to each other.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
yeah. So, you know, I started to get into some of that too. And my dad was into some rock stuff. Like he bought the disco song by Rod Stewart. You know, If You Want My Body, If You Think I'm Sexy.
Yeah.
He had that, and he had Giorgio Moroder and stuff like that.
Okay.
So, I was introduced to a lot of things pretty
It was
early.
in your house. Like, yeah, those sounds, like those sounds. And it's funny how we, in terms of like thinking about the histories of like Black music, oftentimes like that the histories of Black music and electronic music are just doubly entwined. Like so you said something about Kraftwerk, and I remember reading a piece about how
about Africa Bambaataa.
Yeah, exactly. Africa Bambaataa, and then also they were inspired a little bit by the Isley Brothers. Actually, there was like a little bit. Hearing a connection between.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. I gotta say, I'll send you that piece. Actually, I gotta send you that. There's a really interesting piece in the Wire about that. But like, but like, there's these really interesting strings of influence that we have yet to kind of like put into relief, right? So
yes,
like, yeah.
And the Wire is doing some of that, especially David Toop is he wrote an article in the Wire about Black minimalism.
Yeah.
As far as being,
I know what you're talking about that piece. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, someone made a playlist on Spotify that goes along with the list that he made, because he put together at the end of the article a potential mixtape, and he listed in order, and somebody's made that mixtape for Spotify and for some of the other streaming sites.
Yeah.
But I mean, the way that he reframed minimalism, that was a really, I mean, he always does stuff like that. He that's his talent.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask you, like, what message do you want to give people when they listen to your music? Actually, like, what is the message, like, for your fans? Like
it's not easily translatable, but the reason I still make music beyond the fact that I can't not make it is I feel more of a social responsibility as being a musician who happens to be Black, gay, and disabled. And I feel like my releases are important because it makes that visibility real and in your face in a creative way. I'm not I'm not very political as far as my music goes because it's instrumental.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I know what you mean by that, but yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like there's text where I'm stating a specific position.
Mm-hmm.
But I hope that some of that can translate in my music. I don't know how that does. I just think that I just need to do the work and let the work speak for itself.
Yeah.
And I think all of the rest of it, the rest of the demographic stuff will go with it as long as I keep it part of the conversation.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think I want to like end with this other question about like what would you tell someone who's just starting in music right now? Like, what advice would you give them?
I would,
even to your younger self, kind of being yeah.
Well, my younger self, I would have probably told myself to learn a little bit more music theory than I knew, but not to the degree of you being like, for instance, how classical musicians are not able to improv usually or come up with things, but they're really great at reading and playing. And I mean, that's obviously commendable, but it's a different thing. And so I guess I would say one would have to decide what direction they want to take their music and what kind of music they want to make, and then investigate artists, investigate all kinds of artists, not just musical, and be well read about music, and yeah, just know your theory and know how to improvise. But as far as the technicalities of, I'm not saying one has to be
A virtuoso.
extremely proficient
Yeah.
in their instrument, but do things to develop their own style. And if they're going to be using computers for music, then especially they should also learn theory, because it's only going to help.
Right.
But I mean, I'm all for the punk rock approach too.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, I think it's important for individuals to hold on to that as well as some of the formal learning.
Oh.
So I think I would have done more music education.
Mm-hmm.
Looking back.
Yeah.
I probably would have dropped out of a music school, but I would have at least started it.
Started the work of that.
Yeah, and I probably would have tried to become successful while there, and that's probably why I would drop out. I mean, that's what I see a lot of people that go to Berkeley College of Music doing. That, like St. Vincent did that. She went and she dropped out after 2 years. And my studio assistant did the same thing. I don't think he finished. And he was playing with her at the school at the time. But yeah, I just think going to a school like that and then getting exposure that way is advantageous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If if one can afford it. If not, go to City College.
Yeah, do your thing there. Yeah, do the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, another thing I also wanted to ask you was like, okay, the Bay Area. What's the vibe? Like, what has it given you? Like, what do you feel like you've like gotten from this space like over time?
I think I've lived here since '96. So I moved here. I was 26 when I moved here. I lived in San Diego before that. And I lived in Texas before that, but I was born in LA. I think the Bay Area it was the right move at the right time. Coming from an area and a band that was ethnically diverse, and having, a mixed group of friends in San Diego, where 6 of us moved up here and became a family house. But I think my mind expanded quite a bit. Even though it was on the way to expanding, but it expanded more. Just being around, working at Amoeba and being around my mentors and elders there, I've learned a lot about music. Things that I would not have learned probably as soon. Just things I would not have been exposed to had I not worked in a store like that. So, sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine.
Do Not Disturb is not working. So I would say that the vibe has changed in the Bay Area, and Berkeley and Oakland and San Francisco have their own vibes. And what I appreciate about the Bay Area, from as compared to the other areas that I grew up in, is that I'm around more Black folks.
Yeah.
And it's not like it's DC or anything, but it's good to be around more Black folks and more Black folks that are queer.
Yeah.
Even though it's sometimes a little difficult for us to find ourselves in one space. I think that being up here and being the demographic that I am was the right move. Now, but it's not perfect.
Yeah, nothing. Yeah,
it's not perfect.
It's changed.
And we could talk about the cost of living, but
that's like
we all know.
We all know.
So nowadays, I mean, it's like people look at New Mexico or Las Vegas or Denver or Dallas because those are going to be the next places.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think let's close it there. I think we got quite a bit. So
okay.
Yeah. So, well, Dax Pierson, thank you so much, and I'm so glad we were able to have this conversation. And I also want people to let them know that February 26th, please get this album. It's amazing, and that's it. That's Black Life.
Yes. No money back guarantees. No, I'm kidding.
Yes.
I think Dark Entries does returns if you don't like it.
If you don't like it. All right. Well, peace. I'll see y'all later.
All right. Thank you.
Well, hello. Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our conversation. We're gonna actually field some questions from folks. Oh, hey there, Dax.
Hey,
we're back at it.
We're back at it.
Yes.
And I'm wearing the same clothes.
Yeah. Love the glasses though. You did a glasses change, you said.
Did I?
Yeah, you
okay.
said too, I think. Oh, well, maybe not earlier, but yeah.
Yes, I did.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we might have some questions, but before we field some questions, I know earlier when we were kind of chatting, I wanted to hear, you had the story of your Black Eyed Peas question. Oh, actually.
Oh, you heard that?
Yeah, I heard about that. Okay, but before we get to that, we do have a question from Jacob Thompson.
Okay.
And the question is, we're getting used to watching performances at home. How has that experience been for you, Dax? What does the future look like to you?
It looks pretty bright. I mean, I will say as a music fan, I am enjoying all of this live streaming because, to be quite honest, the sound is almost always perfect. And so I really enjoy good sound, and I would watch professionally recorded concerts of larger, more established groups. I mean, I've been doing this already for 15 years. So anytime there would be a really well recorded concert that I like, or of a group that I liked, I would rather watch that than go to the show if it's in a big arena. And in particular, it's that's what I'm enjoying about live streaming during this pandemic period, that everyone is learning how to do their own live streaming and learning creative ways of doing it. I haven't gotten there yet, but I intend to. It's just a little harder to do when one has to do most of it themselves and they don't always have necessarily the caregivers that are technically savvy or what have you. But that is it's something I'm looking forward to participating in more. I mean, I've done a little bit of that, but they have been pre-recorded creations to be presented at a specific time as a live thing since the pandemic has started. But I used footage from live performances that I hadn't released yet. So it still made it special.
Mm-hmm.
Long answer.
Yeah, I love it. No, it's really great. Thank you. We actually have another question that just came in. It's from Mahawam. They say, I'd love to hear Dax speak further on the DIY versus classical split in musicianship. I know we're years of study and the latter leads, but can you speak more on being an expert punk? And thanks.
Wow. Well, first of all, I'm not an expert punk by any means, because I could never, ever subscribe to the style of dress of a particular scene. I just couldn't. It never wasn't me ever. And I would have to say that I never quite felt like a punk in the sense that maybe other people thought of me as a punk. But I think my approach to music is more in a DIY punk way, as far as really learning, just playing by ear first, not having any formal lessons. And then when finally having some formal lessons privately in high school, I hated it because it was almost like reverting back, because I couldn't read. And so it felt like I was learning how to read English, or another language or what have you. So at the time I felt I didn't want to do it. I felt defeated. I felt like I was like, I have all this talent. I don't need all that. I can just be who I am.
You can do it.
Yeah. But some of that is okay. But in hindsight, I feel like just for myself, that I would have liked to have left the area I grew up in to go to college, and go to a music school, but still work independently in tandem. And I think, actually, this brings up something. I think a lot of the reason why I wasn't able to do that as much is because I was dealing with other issues about identity. So I was really dealing with being, a Black gay boy, growing up in a family tradition where that's not cool, because of religion and what have you. And so I think I was going through a lot of that, and I just did not have the clarity of mind to know what I wanted to do with my music, because I was still learning who I was. And it took a little while.
Yeah.
So I'm a bit of a late bloomer.
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, I don't know about that, but we have another question from Beverly. Beverly says, what is Dax listening to right now that is inspiring him?
Lauren Boesfield on A Death Bomb Arc is killing it. And I mean, these are some newer things that I'm hearing in preparation for a DJ set. And I feel like I need to pull up a list in order to just be off the top of the, it's been a weird day.
Yes.
Let's see who else? Well, clipping, I listen to quite a bit, and other people I would say are White Boy Scream. I enjoy her work.
What a name.
And Golden Champagne Flavored Sweatshirt.
Yeah. Okay.
I enjoy her work. There's so many people. Let me pick this list up. See who else I got on here. Well, Wobbly has a new album out, and it's called Popular Monitress, and it's plunderphonic, weird composition, like classical meets post. I guess he calls it post plunderphonic, but you're gonna have to look up plunderphonic if you are not familiar with that term. It's a really good record, along with some Alexi Perala, who is a techno guy, but he is using different tunings, some weird alternate tuning. He's one of those people that are influenced by Aphex Twin. The new Martin Gore EP, he's the songwriter of Depeche Mode, and his instrumental EP has been really surprising. I listened to a lot of stuff on Nagaye tapes. Nagaye tapes. Yeah. So I like Neolotica a lot.
Okay.
And I just got Metal Prayers and Duma.
That's band I've been hearing about that. Yes.
Duma.
Yeah.
I mean, these are guys that are in the hardcore that are, I think they're from Uganda. It's just two guys. And I think one guy is a drum programmer and producer, and the other guy is a screamer.
Mm-hmm.
Who knew? So, I mean, a couple of years ago, I did a deep dive of electronic African music, and that's when I found that label. And I found they have a sister label called Kuala Lumpur or something like that. Slickback is on that label. So I mean, I listen to a lot of different stuff.
This is a good list. So like,
okay, I could go further, but just tune into my DJ set on WFMU on April 6th.
Yeah. We have another question. Brett says, it says, I'm happy to have met you at Conhim's 50th party. I have a great photo of you with 3 Days Stubble, the band from Texas.
Wow.
Where were you in Texas at what age?
I was in Texas from 1980 until 1986. And then when Subtle was on tour in 2005, after the accident, I was in Texas for rehab hospital, as my mom still lived in Texas City. So, and my father lived in Utah. It just kind of made more sense for me to be at this hospital, as it's one of the top rehab hospitals in the country. And so I was there all of 2005 from, let's say, February to December. And then I came back home to Oakland. But it was a real developmental time for me from 80 to 86, of course. That's when I was getting into Prince and other new wave stuff. And MTV had just come out on the day before my 11th birthday. And so, yeah, Texas.
Yeah. Oh, we could, do you have a track maybe you want to preview for people? Is there a select track you have?
Well, let's see, maybe pick something not for the Angels.
Yeah.
I think that's getting a lot of play right now because, well, that's one of the only tracks released so far. I would say maybe Keflex.
Okay. So maybe
that's a pretty out there track.
Mm-hmm.
Or either maybe, I Slay the Pain
mm-hmm.
is also, those are two favorite tracks of mine.
Yeah.
So
maybe we could throw on Keflex and for a quick sample of that and have people kind of get a vibe.
Yeah.
All right, yes, that was Keflex. Oh, they're so it makes me want to like be in a club so bad.
Well, that makes me feel good, and hopefully when clubs open, somebody will play these tracks.
Right. Oh yeah. Actually, I DJ on the side every once in a while, so I'll definitely I'm gonna spin that. So
cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, but I do want to get this Black Eyed Peas story, this connection.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah. I want to.
Okay. Well, hold on. Let me get a little drink of water here.
Uh-huh. Oh.
Did you want to listen to this first, and then we can talk?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was good. Let's say the pain.
I've got some long intros, I'm realizing.
Yeah.
So, the Black Eyed Peas story?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see. Let me put a timestamp on this. I guess it was the mid-90s. And I was in a group in San Diego called Steve Harris Conglomerate. And Steve Harris was a singer-songwriter, which he had a solo career, but he also was in this band with us. And our sound was kind of like a D'Angelo Black Messiah meets something a little bit harder, but wrong time. And after we left San Diego and we moved up here to the Bay Area, that's how we got up here. There were 4 of us and a spouse. that moved into a house in North Berkeley called, well, it was, before that, there was a punk group in there, a notorious punk group by the name of Subincision. So we took over the Subincision house. And while we were developing, we met a guy who was the assistant to Jimmy Iovine, who is the owner of the label Interscope Records. And he is actually the man responsible for Apple Music. He's the one that made that deal with, along with Dr. Dre and Trent Reznor, making them billionaires with the deal. So anyway, this friend of ours who wanted, he wanted to help support us. He booked a show with us and a little known band that were getting some notoriety in LA called the Black Eyed Peas. And he booked us at Johnny Depp's Viper Room on Sunset in LA. And well, the rest is history because we know who got signed.
Yeah.
But we were just a little too weird, and we had lost a personnel member, so we were a 3-piece, and Stevie wasn't playing guitar anymore. He was playing bass because we needed bass, and we played that show, and I remember running into will.i.am on my lunch break after I was working at Rasputin's. While I was working at Rasputin's, I don't know why he was up here, but we traded numbers, and he's like, "Give me a call. I really liked what you did. We should hook up." And I never called because I didn't. I was like, I was in a different headspace. I was like, I don't know if I want to play that kind of, but he could have still helped me, because it turns out that their music director was somebody that Stevie went to high school with, and that guy played on our album on trumpet.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I mean, it's a crazy, it's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Just the connections and success and what measures that, and what's more marketable at a time or not.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. Okay, well, let's finish up with 2 more questions. We have James Purley, and they're asking, I've seen you live.
Hey, James.
Oh, there it is. Yeah. I've seen you live twice and had an amazing experience to visit your studio a couple years ago. What is the experience for you performing live in contrast to you performing in your studio?
Completely different. And I think I'm going to keep it that way because I enjoy, just recently, I've enjoyed creating specifically for a performance as opposed to just always regurgitating what I've been working on for 3 years. It's just, there's less excitement sometimes about replaying music that you have been so intimate with for so long. And the excitement is the new thing. And so they're very different for me right now. I'm trying to fuse the experiences together a little bit more and incorporate things from the album, but in new arrangements in a way that I can improv with them, so they're not exactly just like regurgitating the same arrangement. And I think that would make it more interesting for me, and hopefully interesting for the listeners as well. And hope that the listeners are open enough to hear a different arrangement of something that they know from a recording, from one moment.
All right, and here's our last question from Miss Weatherby. They ask, were you influenced by any sounds from Detroit?
Yes, but later. And I would say firstly, well, no, African Bambaataa is from New York. So um, the Detroit thing came later for me, but the things that I heard that resonated with me initially were Drexciya and Cybertron. So, I mean, I guess, yeah, those guys, you know, those are the guys for me. The much weirder stuff and I guess all of it is referential to Afrofuturism, but those sound the most futuristic to me. Or I guess in the most a little left of some of the other techno. But I am not. I don't profess to be an expert of any particular genre. I'm pretty polyglotty and just like, just going for what I like and what I hear in any genre. And so, I mean, I'm open to hearing more. There's just so much out there. And since I like so many different genres, I try to pick and choose what I like in particular from what artists or their releases.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Dax. This was great.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Totally. And like, thank you everyone for coming out, and thank you for the questions. And I hope everyone, again, please get the album. Please, please, please. And yeah, with that, I will say bye to everybody. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.